call the meeting to order. I assume everyone has read the terrific notes that our very capable secretary has prepared.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? I guess we have to say, start with you, Jan. You have to say aye.
Aye.
Aye, Jan.
Aye, Jan.
Okay, aye, Randy?
Aye, Liz.
By Spartacus, I'm Mark.
Mark. Michaela?
I'm Michaela.
Okay, Patrick's not here yet, he will be here shortly. Thank you all. We're gonna skip down to some other smaller, shorter items until Patrick gets here because he wants to very much participate in Karen's presentation. I'll do the advisory group. We haven't made a tremendous amount of progress, but the idea is beginning to take hold, and Mark and I, excuse me, turn this off. Have been talking about various people who might help us. And Jed, your name has come up. It has, many times.
I hope it's a good thing to Randy.
It was, yes. Your friend, Mark, is very, very enthusiastic about your capabilities, so.
I'm retired, but I'll listen.
Fantastic. So we'd love to have a little conversation with you about perhaps giving us some of your wisdom. Jed is, could you just introduce yourself to others?
Oh, my name is Jed Baumwell, and I retired here in Stockbridge about 9 years ago. My last position was about 10 years with the Department of Neighborhood Development in the city of Boston.
Oh,
I
great.
was in charge of development, representing the city in multi-family mixed income housing,
Mhm.
privately developed housing. And that's probably.
Who were you under, was your group under,
Menino.
well, Menino, but who was head of the,
Well, it varied.
I'm trying to
There were
sort of
different-
place on the name of the,
Charlotte Ritchie was when I started, but then in terms of the head of the department,
right, but were you under the,
Sheila Dillon, do you know her?
I don't.
Okay, she and Charlotte hired me, and I worked mostly with Sheila, who was a deputy, I guess at the time, the deputy director for Department of Housing Development.
Right, were you around Boston when Stephen Coyle was head of?
I was.
Just before my time.
What was the name of Karen, what was the name of?
It was a neighborhood development and employment agency. Charge of back when, he was in charge of the Boston Redevelopment Authority.
That's what I'm searching
I think
for.
actually, yeah, I think it was the BRA he was in charge of.
Yes, Steve was definitely head of the BRA. Were
Yeah.
you part of the BRA?
No, I was not.
I see, so
It's a different thing.
It was a different thing, and there's a whole history of political stuff there, but yeah.
Would you tell me the name again of who you worked for?
I worked with Sheila Dillon and Charlotte Gola Ritchie,
And the department?
Department of Neighborhood Development.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
I don't take that.
Not the BRA. Thank you very much. Anyway, welcome. We're delighted to have you here, and
Thank
we love to have your input and advice and knowledge and wisdom.
Except I can help them.
That would be terrific. Patrick is not here yet, and he is going to recommend, which on Thursday, at their selectmen's meeting, that Bruce Auerbach be nominated to join us to replace Don on the group. So we can move that forward. Mark, do you want to talk about the library talk on the 29th?
Yes, we at one point had talked about inviting Carolyn Valley to speak here at the meeting, at one of our meetings, and then we thought, wait a minute, let's try and generate a little more public interest, and so arranged with the
Bruce is on.
with the library in Stockbridge, and to have a meeting in Stockbridge at the library on June 29th, and have Carolyn Valley appear and have Randy interview her. She'll probably make maybe a couple opening remarks. Randy would interview her, and then an audience would be able to ask questions And the library is very good about sending out, they have a huge mailing list and they send out their events and we usually get a pretty good turnout. So we'll see what the interest is in housing, and we'll get to the Carolyn Valley a little better and maybe get some ideas for how we might proceed.
Do you have time?
I don't,
6:30.
6:30.
No, 6:30.
6:30?
That gives them enough time to, it's 6:30, it's only an hour, 6:30 to 7:30.
6:30.
And it's in the newspaper room, which I forgot the
Bemin,
room.
Bemin?
The Bemin room.
Is that what it's
Bemin?
called? Yes, that's where people read newspapers, yes. Anyway, Wendy was really terrific.
Yeah, Wendy Pearson's the librarian, does a great job down there. Has that place on.
I've had a couple of conversations with Carolyn, she's very enthusiastic about coming. Fingers crossed, because she's arriving the night before from
boy.
another trip, and last time we tried it, she never made it.
We invited her to our March, whenever it was a March meeting, all the gatherings, and she got stuck in Florida for the weather.
But we're hoping to focus the talk, in fact, Karen, one of the requests is, the focus the talk on the needs, the housing needs, and we're gonna give Carolyn a chance to talk about what Habitat does. And then I'm gonna say just a few summary remarks that are gonna come out of our discussion today. And then we'll go back and forth, Carolyn and I are gonna go back and forth talking about the way they've been able to satisfy the needs and also the needs from her perspective, being out in the development world. So Mark, thank you for taking that project on.
Is there going to be a Zoom connection or some way that?
I don't think they
No.
do Zoom there that I'm aware of.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good question,
We'll
but I
find out.
don't know if they have that
That's possible.
capability.
Okay. That would be nice if they did. It would be.
I'll ask Wendy about it.
Or maybe we could record it anyway, so if there isn't a Zoom connection, it could be something we put on our website or on our page.
Yeah, and they don't have any video recording, but that they generally do for those meetings. It's something I've talked to her about it, but.
She's, well, let's find out. Maybe we can figure out a way
All right,
to
I will talk to her about it.
to do that. But I hope that for those of you who are here locally can come, it's the 29th, which should be it's a Thursday.
Yep.
All right, and then the playground project, which Liz has been recruited to get on my little hobby horse. Oh, here it comes. Yay, perfect timing. Hello, Patrick. Welcome. I've met very briefly this morning with Joanna to see, to actually look at the equipment, which I've never really paid enough attention to. And I'd like to report that it's in terrible condition. And this is a project that will improve the quality of life for the many children from our town who happen to live there. We talked about a budget which is plus or minus right around $10,000 to do this, which would include both purchasing equipment. The problem as I see it, the equipment's there's climbing and swings and slides and grabbing things. And so from my point of view, I thought, and I'd like to work more with Joanna to find out what she feels that the improvements. Joanna does have rather large ideas about what can be done. But-
10,000 doesn't go very far these days, I don't think, in playground stuff.
Well, I've priced the equipment. You can find some very nice things
Okay.
for $7,000 and $8,000.
And usually they want a good surface too, that's another part of it.
Right now, the surface is just a mess under it. But the big question that was a little bit of a hill to get over is if you put it right where it is, it's under a lot of trees and next to a lot of trees, and they don't take care of the trees there. So there's concern about the trees falling down, and many trees have fallen down at Pine Woods. Joanna would like to move the playground to another open area that they have. There's 2 open areas. And she says that they're closer to the units, but she says that the owners would be happy to have it moved over there, and these are open, there's no trees around them.
We would need to partner with Construct to,
Well, the proposal that I would like to make is that we give the MUD do it through the tenants association, obviously with supervision from us. And
Tenants.
Okay, go ahead.
we're gonna put a tennis court.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Patrick, the tenants association. She has written to Construct and said that she has funds to do this, she has a source of funds to do this. And she has said they have given her permission. Obviously, all this has to be documented, and if we choose to allocate funds, our funds, which is what I'm proposing, we have $200,000 in the bank, and we haven't spent it on anything.
Do we have any strings on those? Is this the kind of project that's within the,
225, yeah, okay.
is this within the,
I'm sorry?
what we're allowed, are we allowed to do this particular kind of thing?
Yes, I consulted with the lawyer, and I have written
Beautiful.
response saying that because Pinewoods was built with CPC funds, or there were CPC funds in the building.
Alright.
We're entitled to do this, and she said it was also all right to work with the tenants group, directly. We would have to have a grant agreement, that's a new thing that CPC is doing, which is perfectly all right. And they would need to have approval, and also permission if they want to relocate it. Right now, under the equipment that they have is a sand pit that's in terrible condition. And I would think there would have to be some sort of a sand base
Would we
around.
be allowed to get volunteers? We have so many tradespeople around, so many handy people. I don't know what the legalities are and the risks and insurance concerns or whatever about having people do that work.
On a
But
volunteer basis.
yeah, we could save several $1,000s by getting a bunch
Patrick,
of people to pitch in.
what's your view on that?
I think that, well, a couple of things. One, do we know the distribution of ages at Pinewoods currently of children?
I don't, but we can find that, we can get it.
Okay, I mean, not to say it's just for them, their friends could come over and play on it too. So one thing I think we should understand is sort of what the target age is. Is this for toddlers and, young kids? Is it for, I don't know, we use the swing set. Then I think, Michael ran the Parks Department, I think in Lenox or somewhere before he got his job in North Adams. He has a lot of experience with parks, and we also have a Parks and Rec department. I would suggest we kind of, get a little input on what the budget needs to be and what the mix of equipment is right. If we have a former professional right down the hall, we could go get them. And then if the budget's 10 or 20 or 25 or 5 or whatever, I think the budget should really flow out of the specification, not the other way around.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
What I was trying to establish was, it's not 50.
Who knows? I don't know what it is. I have no idea.
Well,
I haven't priced swing sets in months.
Yeah, run right out. I have looked at it, and there's a very broad range of what you can spend. And Joanna was looking and talking to somebody who was talking about a $300,000.
Oh, we're not gonna do that.
We're not doing that. I made that very, very.
Should we make a motion not to do that?
Right. So I asked Joanna was gonna join us, but anyway, she understands that $10,000, I think, gives a vision. There isn't that much room. We cannot have an enormous, or they cannot have an enormous playset over there. And the one they have is a very nice size.
I mean, the serious point I'm making though is that this group is not the swing set design group. We need to get some people who've done this before to weigh in on what a reasonable budget is and a reasonable build out is, and then figure out whether it's the ground preparation of the location or what we actually buy or how it's installed. I think there's way more qualified folks than us to do that. But as the grant-making authority, I'm all for it, you know, and I think we should,
Well, what I would like to have today is a motion at least to establish our support for
make a motion to establish a support
playground equipment,
for
At
playground
Pinewood.
at Pinewood, yes.
working with the tenants association.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, we have to go around. Michaela, you want to start this time?
Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Rennie.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Patrick.
Thank you all. Patrick, we skipped over the appointment of our new member.
Yeah, so I asked Michael to put Bruce Auerbach on the agenda for Thursday, and I assume one of my colleagues at least will support that. I plan to, so.
Terrific. The next meeting dates, I have arbitrarily picked.
There's another thing on the, as an aside, also we're looking to take the balance of the what we had budgeted for housing production plan and move it into the affordable housing trust fund. That's also on the agenda.
Okay, that's great, thank you, that's wonderful. Could I just have a response, can we look at the calendar and see, these are both Mondays. The 17th of July and the 7th of August, and Karen, how do those dates relate to anything that you'd like to do with us?
17th of August, 7th. Well, I think that we need to talk about when we want to have the community housing workshop and when that makes sense. That would be kind of, if we need another meeting to go through the housing needs assessment, fine, we can do, yeah, but,
I think we do.
yeah, it's a lot of material to go through. So maybe we do that on the 17th.
That's the 17th of
Karen, didn't you tell me you're gonna be away
I'm gonna be away from the 19th.
from the 19th?
19th through the 24th. I could probably do the 17th unless you wanted to meet before that, although I have meetings. I'm gone, I'm not available on the 3rd or the 10th of July, and, you know, it's already the end of the month.
Well, if we want to have another meeting about the needs assessment, I would rather do it sooner rather than later because we're hoping to have the workshop sometime in the middle of July. So,
Well, if you're going to meet on a Monday, that's,
I mean, it doesn't have to be Monday.
okay.
We can't meet on the 3rd because that's the 3rd and the 4th.
don't do that.
How about we have a conversation today and follow up next Monday while it's still fresh in our head?
Follow up next Monday?
Yeah, like the 26th.
I don't know what I didn't bring my schedule for the June, so I don't know what I
mean, any day next week, actually. I just feel like we should try to get it done in June.
all right, I just have to.
So based on your schedule, the rest of us, do our best to.
The 26th, Karen?
I don't know, I brought July and August, I didn't think we'd be talking about next week, so I don't have my schedule with me.
Okay.
I'll keep it on my phone.
Thank you.
So I'll let
You
you.
guys coordinate, and we'll make ourselves.
Coordinate, and we'll follow up with her.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, so maybe we do the workshop on the 17th.
I won't be able to be here, but
Where you
we're gonna be on Cape Cod somewhere that week.
Aww.
that week, well,
I mean,
You and Cam, all your
I could try to
vacations
zoom
on
in.
the
I don't know
islands and
where we'll be,
Cape.
but I could try to zoom in.
From the beach. So Mark, when will you be away?
15th to the 19th, I just got.
We miss you guys.
15th to the 19th.
how about before the 15th?
Michaela, how's camping at the center of the island?
God, it's fine. It's getting busy here. It's like New York City descends upon an even smaller island and then sits in huge cars and beeps at each other. Did you see yesterday can I just say quickly that I had a hot dog sized lobster roll and a small thing of sweet potato fries and it was $50. So,
No.
so I missed the Berkshires.
Right.
Oh, my
So it was only
God.
30.
Whoa.
Exactly.
All right, we should talk about, I think we need to set the date of the workshop today.
Yes, I agree. So we're calling it a community workshop?
Well, that's the thing, you can call it, I had a community housing workshop down, but it's been called Housing Summit, Community Housing Forum. I mean, it's whatever you want to call it. I mean, I've done a whole bunch of different names, so it's usually a local preference on what you want to do it. Community Housing Forum, Housing Forum,
I'm putting down all of these.
You got all
Housing
those, please?
Yeah, I
Summit.
got community housing.
Housing
Works-
summit.
Housing workshop.
I like workshop, actually. I think it's a
Could
roll up
we-
our sleeves and.
a
It
workshop?
does imply some kind of activity.
Workshop. Could we tentatively say one day, the week of July 10th? And everyone let us know what days you can't do that week.
This is not the 17th.
So we were talking the 17th.
And Mark can't come.
Could you-
I can't do the 10th or the 11th.
She's gone.
Oh, I'm sorry,
19th.
we could do the 17th.
Well, Mark won't be here.
Mark will be here, so we need Mark.
10th or 11th, I can't.
I can try to zoom in, I just have no idea what we're doing on those days.
You're probably having fun
Okay.
somewhere in the day.
I mean, kind of stuff, because Joanne's trying to get in. I haven't done Zoom on the new website. Where do you find the agenda on the new website?
Under minutes and agendas.
Okay, so-
Go to affordable housing.
Go to the minutes and agenda section.
Under affordable housing trust. You have to go to that first and then.
When I tried to find the Zoom for this, you had to go into the actual agenda itself. There isn't a separate link
Right.
listed.
To get the agenda though, that's under agenda minutes.
Yeah, well, you have to.
So just so people know, they have to actually go in, click on the agenda to find the Zoom link.
Right, that's what I had to do as well.
All right, Joanna's just missed. Okay.
So what did we decide?
What's the consensus on the date?
Well, we're talking about a date for the workshop
The
summit
workshop?
forum. Yes, we're talking about July 17th. That's the last thing I heard. But
And
Mark
then
can't do it.
10th
Mark
is it.
can't do it.
But
I can't do
somebody's
the
not
10th
gonna
and
be
I can't do the 11th.
Right. So
What can you do the 10th?
I can't do the 10th and I can't do the 11th.
That's kind of quick for
right, so
publicizing this.
that's why we're talking the 17th, and you're gonna be leaving the 19th, so we
Right.
can't ask you to come on the 18th.
No, I'm actually, I already have, not that evening, but I'm getting that.
What time would this be? Like 4 o'clock or
Well, if you're gonna get the community there? No.
Usually start at 7 to 9 type of
7
thing.
to 9?
68. This
Well,
community.
I'll
Say yes.
I'll figure out a way,
I like that.
I'll figure out a way to zoom in. I don't want to hold up the 17th. I'll figure out a way to
Let's
zoom
do
in.
that then.
All right.
Okay.
So 17th,
Well, now we have to find out if we have a place to do it. because
where would be the best place
Right there,
in the large room?
in the old gym,
Would we get that, do you think we're gonna get?
why not? Unless there's a square dance, I don't know.
Okay, it's July 17th, and what are we gonna, what's the consensus? You wanna call it a workshop?
Community housing
Yeah.
workshop.
Community Housing Workshop is on July 17th.
And maybe we ask people to RSVP or something, just so we can get a count, because we could always set up the gym.
Right.
If we're going to get more than that, that room's got a capacity of 45 or 50. I mean, I'm not sure we'll get more than that, but,
No, it's got more than that.
what?
Even remember when we did these other big things, we had zillions of tables, and I don't know, had over 100, 150 people sitting.
Yeah.
So we need to also talk about how we would notify the community that this is gonna happen.
I'll
So,
draft a press release and
Okay.
put together a flyer.
okay, you can put it in yours, you can put it in Stockbridge.
Yeah, we can
Updates,
do-
put it at the
we'll
end,
get-
we can put it everywhere. Yeah, that's your evening, second homeowners.
And Michaela's going to bring the lobster rolls.
I'll bring you each like a piece of meat. That's like all you can have is one bite, but I'll bring it.
Oh, Michael, Michael, you wanna walk in?
What's that?
Very good. Come on in,
All right,
come
thanks,
in.
everyone.
We could use you. Let's go get it.
Thank you.
He doesn't want to get roped into it.
You don't have to stay long, Michael.
Yeah.
Oh, good, Joanna's on. All right, we had a very brief discussion about we voted to allocate funds for the playground, a new playground at Pinewoods. And Patrick represented you as the world's greatest knowledge about playgrounds.
I wouldn't call it that, but yes, I did do park and recreation for over a dozen
When
years.
compared to the rest of
Yes.
the.
That's where I started, so
You are a
yes.
grand poobah compared to the people sitting at the table.
So which funds did you?
Our funds.
We haven't appropriated
All right,
anything,
so
so we need a
you're-
budget, we need to go through all the regular, we
Right,
need
so
to figure
you're
out
gonna ask the
sizes.
select board to reappropriate the money.
No, they
Right.
don't have to.
We're gonna do that anyway. But the two separate issues, this the extra 30,000 that we use as a budget plan.
Right.
And then this, we can use either community preservation money or that. Boy, since we don't know what the budget is yet, I don't think we should talk about appropriating yet. We're gonna need to figure out where it is we're buying.
We voted support for paying for and installing new playground equipment.
We can catch them up after, why don't we keep going with that thing?
We would just like to know if you can provide us some help and maybe direct us to someone who could design or help us select really good equipment.
Yeah, the town's used O'Brien's, they're out of, I forget where they're out of. I think Joanna is familiar with them too. I forget where in Massachusetts they're out of, they put in some of our playground equipment, including the playground equipment out here.
Okay,
And a lot of places use them, so
all
it's
right,
something that
excellent.
we can look at.
And you can give me the contact information, we'll get.
Yeah, we're together actually on what it needs to be. 'cause
Yeah,
that's
we
my-
need to figure out who's authorizing what and where, because obviously it's not our property. We have to make sure.
Well, the tenants association is,
Yeah.
Right, the plan is to work with the tenants association. And Joanna, can you speak up? Are you
But
there?
Randy, I think this is something that, specifically this, I think we can move to you
I know
guys.
you're trying to move away from it, but I'm trying to pin it down, so, just, we need a process.
Right, so I need to figure out what the process would be, because even though you said the tenant association also doesn't have any land rights, so what we'll have to do is confirm with Construct that they're allowing, and whatever approvals we will need to gain from them to allow the tenant association to install.
Exactly.
right, I have it in the notes, we need a written agreement from Construct.
Yes.
Please use us for one.
Joanna represented that she has been in touch with Construct.
Yeah.
To, and does have, at least on a first step basis, there's obviously much more to it. But if you can help us, and if it's O'Brien's, we could.
Yeah,
set
the
up
first
a
step is
conversation.
Construct first.
Mhm.
Let's make sure before we go any further, that Construct is agreeable to allowing us to work with the tenants association for installation of playground equipment, even if they identify the area and how much square footage and the rest we can use, then we could contact an outside vendor and say, we have this 30 by 30 plot that's been identified for playground installation, what can we put in there?
Right.
And then we can work with them on what the different options are.
Okay, terrific. Anyway, your help obviously would be
Yeah.
valuable.
All right.
We have something else that's come up that I have to excuse myself for a couple minutes. So I'll be right back.
All right. Are we losing it? All right, we also lost Joanna, so I don't know where.
Randy, can I ask a question, bringing us back to the community workshop?
Sure, please.
I'm just wondering, how are we, like Jan was saying, how are we getting that word out? Are we mailing like a postcard, or I know we talked about having like, how are we letting people know about it, I guess?
Well, I think that a number of things have been brought up. There's the local newspapers, and there is a mailing list. There's a town mailing list. I think that you have done a lot of work, Jen.
The Stockbridge updates, the
Right.
second homeowners list.
Right.
So we'll send out through a number of vehicles. And we'll kind of clarify that next week with Michael so that we can get that in the works. Okay. As soon as we get from Karen the kind of little description.
We could put posters around too, like have them at the post office, library, places that people don't.
Yeah.
Will go.
But who is coming? Are you gonna be able to manage that, or do we
Yeah.
need to?
Yeah.
It's okay.
And with Michael,
With Michael.
I'll be in touch with him and we'll get that kind
And
of done.
Mikhail maybe will do some of the.
Yeah.
And Jan, I don't know if this is of interest because it probably costs a little bit, but, or if it's easy to do it without this, but there is something called Every Door Direct Mail, which is targeted mailing. And basically they will target a zip code or like an area, a town, and you can submit what you would like them to mail and they'll just do it. So I don't know if that's of interest and saves any time, but it might be worth just looking into.
Okay.
Certainly pricey.
Yeah, we should look.
Yeah, I wondered, so that would go to,
Like you could target it specifically for the Stockbridge
Zip code.
zip code.
We only have one. We just
Right.
have one zip code.
and it would go even if the mailing address for, let's say, a second homeowner was not Stockbridge.
Well, I think what you'd probably want to do, yeah, I mean, it would go to whatever zip codes, are, whatever mailing addresses that are listed within that. And then if we knew that someone was like Patty's list, for example, was not necessarily receiving mail at their residence, we could also send something to that listserv as well, but it might just make the physical mailing easier.
Okay,
It's just a thought. It might be just worth looking into the cost versus the cost of doing the mailing on our own.
The physical mailing for the everyday direct mail, they're gonna put it in every mailbox in Stockbridge is what they'll do.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't get to the people, like if they're living in their primary address is
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
that's what we're saying, Patty. We're saying that we would do both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that we would definitely make sure to utilize your list through a lot of the people who are second homeowners to make sure they have the information as well as just send an actual flyer or a letter.
yeah, and I think on the Stockbridge updates, if I'm right, they go out twice a month.
Yeah.
So the first 15.
Yeah.
So we'll need to get that in the works and out by the 1st of July, so we have, and again.
It seems like we ought to be able to get, this is a big enough production for us, that both the Edge, I'm sure will do something for us. And whether we could get Clarence to do something for the Eagle about it. So, but this, it's called Every Door, Michaela?
Yes, Every Door Direct.
Yeah, it's called Every Door Direct Mail. I just, sometimes it can actually work out to be cheaper than having to do all of it yourself. So it's just something that might make lives easier, but I didn't know, might be worth looking into.
Okay, we should. We have extra money for incidentals, depending on how expensive it is. But I think it's really important that we get as large a turnout. If you got, for that last study that was done,
We had a lot of people, and I came not once but twice. We had follow-up.
you had two. But Karen, you're thinking of only one for this, right?
Yes.
And everybody's here, I mean, the reason we're doing it now is because most people are here. Right, so
Yeah.
I think even if we do it direct mail, I think many of your second homeowners are gonna get it anyway, because they're getting the mail here because they're here.
We'll have a follow-up community forum after the draft plan is prepared and then present the draft to the community in some type of form, but not like a breakout groups or anything like that.
So there'll be two meetings over the course of this.
Yes.
Okay, we have Patrick back.
And Joanna has her hand up, just so you know.
Where?
Right there.
There's a hand.
Oh, there you are. Joanna.
Hi, sorry, I was driving for a while and I couldn't find any reception, but now I'm on Wi-Fi for a few minutes anyway. I heard the topic of the playground equipment come up and I missed the conversation, so I just was wondering what you guys were talking about, or if you had any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer anything you guys were wondering about that.
We're sorry that we missed you on that. I think probably because we have a very big agenda, you and I should probably talk about it afterwards. But the summary is that we voted to support the idea. And Michael Canales, our town manager, has a lot of experience, and he's recommended O'Brien's, that we work with a company called O'Brien's. And that, obviously we'll need to get official notices from Construct to be able to do it, and also then to work out where's the best place to locate the equipment.
Yeah, so like we talked about, Randy, I'll mention really quick. I had spoken to a guy named Mark Fadding, who is a certified arborist today, and he's going to come and do an assessment of the trees lining the driveway where the current playground is, which is where Construct is saying they would like to keep the playground in its place. However, the concern is there's several trees that are dead that need to come down, that Construct doesn't seem willing to pay for to get them taken care of. When I talked to Kathy Wiggins, the property manager from Pinewoods, about our concerns about the trees and not wanting to put a brand new play set under the trees if they're dead, because they pose a risk not only to the new play set but to the children playing there. She had said that the trees had been assessed by a company called Kelly's, but I asked for the contact information so I could verify what they said about the trees, because, for all I know, they told her that they need to come down. I mean, several of them are dead, so I can't imagine them saying that it would be a good idea to keep them up. So I'd like to contact them directly and verify that they signed off on the trees. And independent of that, I'm getting another assessment by a certified arborist, and I'll have him put that in writing. And I'm going to submit that to Kathy. And, if there's any discrepancies, or if he thinks that the trees would pose a risk, either for property or physical risk, I'm gonna submit that to Kathy, because the alternative was maybe moving it to a more open space where there's no trees on the property. And so I'm kind of working on that as well. Kathy did write me an email saying that they did approve having the new play set put in, but the question is where to put it. So I'm working on that aspect of it, and I can keep you posted on that, Randy.
All right, great. Do you have a copy of that email or letter, or can we get something from Construct?
Yeah, I can forward to you and list the email I got from Kathy, just confirming that the playground that they give the green light for the playground or the new play set.
Okay, terrific.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your hard work on all this, and we'll try to move this as quickly as we can so it can be used while the weather is nice.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, I'm working on it too, because I think the kids they're very excited about the news about getting a new one. So they're definitely motivated to have it put in. So we're working on it. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Is there anything else? We've now, just to confirm the dates, we're going to meet next June 26th, next Monday is our next meeting, and that July 17th is our workshop.
Mhm.
And do we want to also nail down the 7th of August
I'm aware that I might be able to do it.
remotely? We can't push it
And
without
plus,
you.
June 26th is not a definite yet because Karen has to change.
Let's plug it in, because I'm thinking that I might be able to, trying to look, I'll confirm it, let's pencil it in, and I'll, as soon as I get back to my office,
Okay.
I'll send a message.
All right, and then I'll send a message out. All right, but what about August 7th?
I can do 7.
August 7th, so we could,
Call me on the kid.
Oh, you'll be gone, but you think you can,
I'm gonna have a house full of babies. I don't, a very small house.
how long will you be gone?
A week,
From the 7th
from the
to the 6th?
fifth to the 12th, I think,
Well,
so something, Saturdays.
all right, do you wanna move it a week so when Liz is back?
You don't have to, I can do this from
You can do
the,
Might moving it back, be more in keeping with the survey
so,
results?
so do July 31st.
Yeah.
That's a good point here.
Okay, July 31st,
Meeting.
Martha, does that sound,
My
July 31st, for
July
next meeting?
31st?
July, I thought we were talking August 7th. I thought we were talking maybe moving it back to
August 14th, I like the 14th.
14th.
Oh, you wanna go the other direction?
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Oh, but we're so excited.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right,
This is for the,
Next meeting,
well, the next
Outside
meeting's the 26th,
right.
the workshop is the 17th, and our next meeting then would be the 14th of August. Is that all right with you, Patrick?
it just seems like it's a long time.
It is a long time.
Well, what's the timing on the workshop, on the survey?
Well, the survey we would want to send out right after the workshop.
Which would
And
be
give
the 17th, and give at least a month.
I think we should try to meet the 24th of July. Is that bad?
Karen's away the 24th.
I'm away, the 17th is when the community housing workshop is.
And then you're away to Problem.
Then we'd send the survey out right after that.
And give it a month, so the 14th is not kind of an unreasonable date.
But we don't want to,
What would be the agenda for the August meeting?
well, before we move to that, I'm wondering if we want to use the public meeting to inform the survey. Like, are we gonna lock down the survey before the 17th, or are we
I think
gonna basically?
No, we're gonna
Idea
send it
was-
out right after.
Right after,
So
I think the idea was to do some community education, have the draft needs assessment on the website, and to go through the workshop and explain kind of from the basics, kind of,
Right.
affordable housing 101, this what's going on in Stockbridge, this kind of general needs, and then send out the survey right afterwards. I think that's what we agreed to.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just taking that, so.
Refresher.
Yeah, so then the 14th maybe makes sense, sure. And then we're gonna be collating actual results.
Right.
Yeah, and we can kind of do a debriefing on the workshop at the same time.
August 14th, and I am free.
Okay, so,
Oh, wait, well, there's a, okay.
What is it?
let's,
Well, the Berkshire Eagle Foundation has a talk at 6 o'clock. I just bought a $100 ticket to, but I will be happy to miss it. So,
Oh, we don't have to, we'll.
all right,
we'll be-
4 o'clock,
we'll be-
4 o'clock, all right.
you know, do 4:00. All right, so just to confirm, we are meeting June 26th,
I'll confirm with that,
all
yeah.
right, and Karen's gonna confirm. Then we're going to have July 17 workshop. The survey goes out the 19th or the 18th, right? So we'll be ready for that. And then the next meeting after that is August the 14th.
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of time.
That covers the
Frame.
summer.
Yeah,
And then sometime in September is when the report would be finished and we would have another community meeting.
yeah, we were talking September, October type of thing, maybe, so early fall is when we'd have the draft ready and then follow that with another public meeting. And then we still also need planning board approval
Yeah.
and select board approval, so those are additional meetings.
So we want to have a preliminary meeting with each of those groups before the final request for approval.
Well, I gotta say, different, boards deal with it differently. Often, I'll do a presentation, or we will do a presentation of the draft plan, and the planning board and the select board will approve it that evening. If there are real issues, they wanna talk about it, they often will just approve it at their next meeting, and you would have to do another, gig. So it's really, I think, what is, how do things flow here, and But sometimes they do joint planning board and select board meetings, and
That would be good.
that is very efficient.
Patrick, how do you see?
I want that just fine.
No, seriously.
August 14th is good.
No.
You missed the last part of the conversation.
All right, Patrick, no good. Ultimately, the select board and the planning board need to approve this plan.
And we're talking about having them meet together so we can just do it together and.
Yeah. Do you think is that something that boards have done?
I think that it's a great thing and we should do it in early September, right?
Well, not early.
We could do it in September, we could do it, but probably later in September or early October, because we want to still have a public meeting ahead of that.
Basically, a second public meeting to present the findings sort of thing.
The
Present
draft
plan.
plan.
The draft plan. I think the end of September, for about 2.5, 3 weeks. And that's why you already September also. But if we did it like the last week of September, sometime the 25th, 26th, 27th, no, not 25th, 25th or 26th, I'm not even.
I mean, there's gonna be sometime in September, there's likely a big town meeting, but that won't affect us, so.
Liz is on both
Planning
this and the planning board, and I think it's important we have it when she's here. So it would have to be before the
Before the 27th
of
of September, or after the 17th of October.
Okay.
We know,
So we can still, I think we have enough dates into the
Yeah.
next 2 months.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes with our meeting and with our survey.
sounds good.
All right, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up? I don't think we need any speakers now.
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, anything else? Anyone on Zoom wants to contribute anything? Okay, Karen, you're on.
Let me see if I can get
Can you
this.
get the- So I did a PowerPoint presentation that basically kind of summarizes what, in my mind, are the kind of key takeaways from the housing needs assessment.
Sure.
The housing needs assessment
I'm trying to.
being the first major part of the housing production plan. We haven't gotten to the strategies and the goals yet.
Right.
We're really kind of focusing on the context for identifying those specific strategies. But ultimately, the strategies and goals relate to the needs that have been identified. I thought it would be useful just to run through the PowerPoint, to get your comments on the presentation itself and what things, we don't need, we should tweak this, we need to add this, that type of thing. I just want to be as efficient as possible given the time frame. Maybe I just go through the current slide one by one and get comments from you guys after I go through it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just ask?
Oh, you need to get
If
the,
any, I have the presentation up here. I'm logged into Zoom, but I need someone who really knows how to get share screen and everything. Because I thought I did, but it's not working. Is there a thing on? Anybody know?
Yeah.
The host, are you the host, Jan? Because the host probably has to enable the screen sharing for you.
Oh, okay.
Whoever the host is can make you a co-host and then you'll be able to share.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So you click the little, the three ellipses at the top right corner.
Top right. Oh, she's talking about top right corner. Top right corner?
If you click on if you're the host, you click on the ellipses at the top right corner of.
Share screen didn't work, that little button down there?
No, the top right corner would be on here.
Yeah, choose file.
Stockbridge room 2 is hosting, but it's not showing up.
Is it whiteboard?
Here,
What's the application?
It's a PowerPoint.
Both.
I don't see it. In files, I don't see it in there.
Disabled.
Can you open it on the Mac?
IRAs who are not here full-time are bringing their $150,000 incomes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that equal populations of those under 20.
Are you Larry Evans?
Try sharing again, because you're in it.
Yeah, you
Go back to the
said
Zoom and
really
try.
I'm gonna make, wait, I'm gonna make,
it's
Really interesting.
I'm gonna make her a host.
Okay, then I should be able to share.
How bad it is.
Well, I think people are very much unaware of how many low-income.
You're a host now.
in the community.
Okay, where is it?
Yeah,
It's shocking that the median income.
Microsoft SharePoint, is that it?
I know. I was shocked when I first looked at it.
I don't understand the
SharePoint.
math of it.
That's half under that and half over.
Pretty basic, extra basic.
Well,
Well, we only have what,
Oh,
1,700
you gotta go open your system preferences.
people who live.
and fewer households than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 633 housing units, there's about the same number of households,
Zoom.
the population is,
Screen recording, turn it on.
I got it right here,
And Karen, you know, that 10%,
2018.
10% number is deceptive because it doesn't include second home.
Not typing the password.
Of course.
Properties. I know you know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, so what you have is you have a decline, if you think about it, you have a declining number of full-timers. So that number becomes distorted in some ways.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
it's now 13% because the number of homeowners has decreased since 2010. So we're
Did that
down
work?
to,
Well, I'm gonna get to all of that,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
actual
yeah,
numbers, if we can get this
yeah.
going. Yeah, but you're, I
Back to
mean,
share.
yeah, you went from 10 to 13 because of the denominator change.
So I wonder if the low-income people are being pushed out and that those are the ones that have left.
I'm sure that
That's not the one I want. I want.
Look,
Oh, there you did
it.
Are you sure?
No, just try double clicking it maybe. I don't know.
Open system settings.
Just keeping up with taxes and insurance and paying a house.
No, exactly.
Yeah, you might have to open,
Here.
you can't share it, Randy?
Pardon?
You can't share the presentation?
There we go, you got it, she got it.
Yes.
Well done, you techies.
Da-da-da-da-da.
There's hope yet.
There it is. Okay, now enlarge it so the whole screen.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so let's go to the second slide.
I say that one passes, you're good.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a lot of, dissent on that one, besides the name of it. So I thought to start, because the town hasn't done a housing plan recently, that it might be useful to talk about some of why the town's doing a housing production plan. And I just listed some of the reasons in this slide. Do you want me to read through it, or have you already read it? Do you want me to read it?
I think we can all try and read it at the same time, otherwise it could take a real long time, but.
Yeah, I mean.
Plus we saw the slides in advance.
Okay, so the question to you folks is, are we missing something here? Do you want to tweak the language? Just.
So as I read this, I got the impression that if we have one of these plans, it helps us be more likely to secure funding, is that right? No?
Well,
We submit this to the state, don't we?
Yes, it puts you in a better light with the state for funding, having a housing plan, and for sure.
I just wondered if there's some,
And then you got the Justice 40 stuff too, which is
Yeah,
also
well, you
gives you
have-
a competitive edge.
yeah, all right, you said it supports grant application, so
Yeah,
I don't know, I think making it clear that by providing this to the state,
Better position for state
maybe more
funding.
favorable outcomes for grant application. So it's a kind of a direct connection with, if we do this, it could help us secure funding,
okay, that's good.
just to be.
You had that last one has grant application.
Yeah, I think it would be, if
Are we worded a
some
little bit?
stronger wording, just to really show the payoff.
Yeah,
But Karen, doesn't it also allow us, if we decide to try to, I hope it will do something, that we can get a friendly 40B more easily if we have this plan?
yeah, let me just, let's go to the next slide. So this talks about housing production plan, because basically, these plans are a subset of chapter 40B. regulations. Such that if you have a plan that's approved by the state, based on very prescriptive requirements by the state, and then you produce 0.5% of your year-round housing stock, and for you guys, that's an important descriptor, year-round, as it is for the Cape, then you get what's called certified for a period of a year, sometimes referred to as safe harbor, where developers cannot, you can actually deny 40B applications that you determine are not appropriate to addressing local needs without the developer's ability to apply, to appeal. You have that already, because you expressed the 10%.
That's a wrong for us.
Exactly. So, but it's useful if somehow the cushion falls away, this is still a mechanism of dealing with what's unwanted 40B applications. Then if you do 1% of your own housing stock, you get the safe harbor for 2 years. And then what I mentioned down here is because you've already passed the 10% filling on that. But we were talking about the local initiative program before, also referred to as the Friendly 40B project. Even municipalities that have surpassed the 10% will often opt to doing the LIP or the Friendly 40B because it's an efficient permitting tool.
Yeah.
So that's something to really consider, in which case both the developer and the town, they basically join hands and come to an agreement on a particular development proposal and jointly apply to the state to get the go-ahead to have the developer submit comprehensive permit application to the ZBA.
Are we waiting to the end, or do you want to have a discussion?
I thought we just have discussion by each slide,
Okay.
so not skip to the slides down, because down the road.
No, so on this slide.
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to ask the board's thoughts on is, Lee, for example, is 92% of the domiciles or homes or domiciles, are local. In Stockbridge, it's something like 50-50, maybe 55-45.
Yeah.
Who exactly knows? We don't need to track it now.
Yeah.
I wonder if our goal should be tied to actual homes, the way it is in just about every other community in the state. So right now, we have the luxury, because half our homes don't count to the census, of not having to count those half when we get to our 10%. I think as an internal goal, as we look at housing production, we might look at a combination of affordable and mixed use. So let's say we're to build something that was 4 affordable and 2 mixed use, two above like 125% of AMI. I think personally, my personal goal is we have almost 1,700 houses in this town, and to get to 10% of affordable, and I would consider a mixed use development as part of that, would be a goal of 170 units. And I think right now with Riverbrook, we're at about 113. And I believe that we should have an aggressive goal, not aggressive, but I think we should have a goal that aligns us with most communities in the state that don't have the rather atypical demographics that we have. And
So, we could actually, because the housing production plans are fairly, as I said, kind of descriptive of what they contain and kind of focusing on that annual percentage of units that would meet SHI. We could also say, okay, this is the goal within our goals within 5 years, but longer term, we would like to get to 10% of the
10% of all
actual
houses.
housing units and include that as part of the
What do you guys think?
needs assessment.
So when we're doing that, how would we take into account second homeowners in that?
We don't, it's a voluntary goal.
Yeah,
So we're just saying that we got the houses here.
But I'm saying we would count, so let's say we have the 170 we're talking about. Some of those may actually be for second homeowners,
Yeah,
right?
Not the
well,
houses.
none of the ones that are.
No, it's just counting the 1,700.
I understand, but
Yeah.
why wouldn't we have some of them.
Well, there's, in general, people with two homes aren't gonna qualify as 80% AMI, that's,
Or even 100%.
yeah, well, obviously, right.
My only,
And we can't count them anyway, I mean, that's all census stuff, I'm simply talking about
It's a
targets.
local goal.
Yeah, what our
longer
local
term.
goal is,
so
right,
you said 170, and what is it currently now?
113 or 111.
Under
So,
13.
I mean, in my mind, I'm like, Stockbridge creating 60 new units of affordable housing. And I'm
Over
like,
the next 10 years, yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you get there by having
That's
one.
6 a year.
Where? But well, I think there are, let's move on, because I think I'm gonna talk,
Okay.
I'm gonna talk about some of that.
One thing before you move on, Karen, would you explain very briefly what the LIT is? Because I'm not sure everyone would know.
Yeah, I described it as the town and the developer kind of joining hands, agreeing on the terms and conditions of the project, where the town says, yeah, this project represents something that really can help us out, and the developer is, makes some changes, and they submit jointly an application to the state, now the Department of Housing and Livable Communities, in order to get the go-ahead, what's called a site eligibility letter, to submit the application to the zoning board of appeals, which basically processes the permitting for the 40B. So it's a very positive kind of situation.
Okay.
And also, these, housing production plans are really focused on SHI units, so units that are targeted typically to at or below 80% area median income. But that doesn't mean that this plan, we can talk about addressing a wider range of housing needs still. So, okay, next slide. What is affordable housing?
Can I just ask Karen, on what are the housing production plans? We don't need to do this.
Nope.
We don't need to get approval.
Nope.
We don't have 1 or 2 year goals. I think it's very, very confusing to say, that these are what other towns are doing and keeping it to what our town needs to do. Because we aren't going to have 1 or 2 year goals in order to deny or accept these 40B.
Well, these are basically annual goals that you would do under housing production, of at least identifying how you could get 4 units per year of SHI units. But I thought you wanted a housing production plan. If you don't want a housing production plan with the goals, you could do all the other requirements and just not do the annual goals if you wanted to. I've done those before, communities above the 10%. It means though you won't get approval from the state. You won't have that same state sanctioned housing production plan that could help you out
Yeah.
with, with financing, development, and some other kinds of opportunities, benefits from the state down the road.
Okay, but what I find very, very confusing is that we already meet the 10%.
Yep.
So if we did nothing, we would still have the ability to have a friendly 40B,
That's right,
right?
that's right.
I just think that it's extremely confusing to people, this language. And if we're gonna have a goal, then we're gonna have to try to meet it. We can't just have a goal that we don't meet or don't try to meet.
Well, you could have a 5-year goal under housing production, and you have a longer term goal based on 10% of your actual units, like Patrick was suggesting. So you can have easily, a lot of plans will include shorter and longer term housing goals.
Okay. But if this is a presentation that you're going to make, having this particular language in it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying, if this is what you're going to bring to the workshop.
Well, if you want to know what housing production plans are, they basically is, I'm very open to anybody changing the language if they think it, but this is what you will have to include annual housing goals of at least 4 units in the plan, based on the strategies that are included in the plan that reflect the needs that are included.
Karen, I would just reverse the order in the last two slides. You basically made the point
Well, that's,
that we're already at 10%. And the last point,
that's a good
maybe,
point.
I would start off and say Stockbridge is in a great position
Yeah,
because of its demographics and the mix of home ownership. We already meet the technical requirement for 10%. Whether or not we are anywhere near the 10%,
Yeah.
however, based on the number of units, is a different story because so many of the units don't count toward the census. Then we basically talk about what the typical housing production plan is and what specifically we're trying to accomplish by doing it anyway, even though we're not required to do it. So leave with Stockbridge and then talk about defining what it is.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
So you're going to say to people, we're doing this plan, so, and have these goals, even though we don't need to.
Well, is it good to have goals?
Well, need is an interesting word there.
We're not legally required.
We're not legally
We're
required
not
to.
legally required to do this, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
If you want to get approval under housing production though, by the state, you need to do it.
I mean,
Is there a downside to doing
Well,
that?
I don't like having goals that if those aren't real goals, what our real goal is to try to get to 170.
Well,
That's a long.
isn't our goal, shouldn't our goal be to first look at what the housing needs assessment is and determine whether we need to have more than 113
Yeah, let's-
units?
Let's
Or
move
we
along.
don't,
Yeah.
and how many more we think we might need. Forget for a
Yeah.
second the 10% with the 170.
Let me go through the
Yeah.
presentation because I think we get down to the needs further down. We can have we
But
can
my
talk about
point
this.
is that if you're gonna have this in here, I'm just very reluctant if you're making a presentation, you're saying, this is what other people have to do, but not us.
If you are going to submit that plan to the state, you need to do this.
Right.
If you're not gonna submit it to the state, you don't have to. So it's not other communities. It's, if you want a housing production plan, you have to include these goals of 0.5% per year.
But Karen, we could also not submit it to the state, but also articulate what some of our goals are, right?
Well, I
That's
think,
also possible.
my sense is that, you can, based on some of the opportunities, I think there are ways of getting to this 4 units per year. And there are no demerits for not meeting production goals. The state doesn't go and say, oh, what have you done and all that. I mean, if you don't meet, they know these goals are ambitious. They know it. So, I mean, I've worked, with towns where I've updated plans and they haven't done anything during those 5 years, and we just submit it and the state approves it, as long as you meet the basic requirements. So that's something, let's just go further on the needs piece, and we can come back to this question. So on what is affordable housing, I think this can be confusing. We talked a little bit about this in our first meeting. There are different definitions of affordable housing. The high definition that has been praised by the state in these circumstances is that if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing costs, whether it be for rental or ownership, you're living in housing that's not affordable. And 30% of income is the traditional affordability threshold. The definition that usually talk about, and that is kind of prominent in housing production plans, because we're talking about the SHI, the subsidized housing inventory, is the one under chapter 40B, where a unit has to meet a number of requirements to be included as part of that subsidized housing inventory towards reaching that 10% affordability goal. So the unit has to be subsidized either directly by some public resource, or it has to be approved by a subsidizing agency, such as like a 40B application where the subsidy is really the density involved, where the
market units are internally cross-subsidizing the affordable ones, you need the go-ahead, like we were talking about before with the lift, from a state agency, and there are about a handful of agencies that can do this, in order to submit the application to the zoning board of appeals. They have to be deed restricted, and we're talking about pretty much in perpetuity unless there's a specific reason not to do in perpetuity. They have to be affirmatively marketed, so that folks outside the community get notified about the opportunity and have a real shot at submitting an application. And they have to be available to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. And just to give you an example, based on the most recently issued 2023 income limits, a household of one, we're talking about maximum income of $57,300. For a household of two, we're talking about maximum income limit of $65,500. And for a household of three, we're talking about $73,700. These are all incomes above Stockbridge's current median household income.
Yeah.
And then there are 866 units that have been counted as year-round units. And that's based on the 2020 census, decennial census, the total number of units, minus the 2020 census information from the American Community Survey to get to the 866 units. I've got to say that DHCD, it's going to be taking me a while to say, DHLC is going to be getting back to communities and confirming that American Community Survey figure. You take the total housing units and you subtract out the seasonal occasion units, get to the year-round units.
But you're saying that there's 866 as of the 2020.
2020, and that'll last for 10 years.
And to just put that in perspective, I believe that number was 1,013
Yes.
in the 2010 census. So,
Yeah.
you know, so you see like the trends that we're talking about here. All right, so our percentage has actually gone up because we haven't lost any affordable units, so we're now at 12, 13, 14% or something.
13%.
13,
You were
that was a
10.
good guess.
Yes, you were at 10.5, now you're at 13.
And Karen, under this definition of affordable housing, it has to include all four of these, not just one or two.
Yeah, and meet all those requirements. And we often refer to these units as the capital A affordable housing units.
Okay.
And go to the next slide. So this is just like kind of key findings from the analysis that we did on the demographic profile. The chart shows that the population has fluctuated somewhat over years, and it's on a kind of charted on a downward trend. And projections indicate that there'll be future population losses. However, the State Data Center forecasted that by 2030, the number of units, of the population rather, would be down to 960.
Oh my God.
But their projection for 2020 was 1,588 residents, which is well below the 2018 that actually happened in 2020. They're clearly undercounting, the population is probably not terribly reliable.
Well, also 2020 was, the count was happening during the pandemic.
Right,
And there were just more people here to count,
right.
I mean, I mean, none of us know of how we got from 2018 to 1863 in 2 years. But I think it basically, is reflecting the fact that some of the people who were sheltering here are no longer, we haven't gone to a funeral every other day or something. It's like, I mean,
You think
So,
that
but these are year-round residents.
census.
Yeah, this is census, yeah. And then,
Wait, just a second.
yeah,
If this document is saying that we have 1827 for 2018 year-round residents, and then yet we're only being evaluated on 866.
That's household.
household. housing units.
And I would point out that where this is likely inaccurate is in your, on the change in distribution slide you have, the 20 to 30-year-old, 34-year-olds, many, if not most of those people are still registered with their parents, though they are often either living at college or at grad school or gone and not coming back. You know, that the number of the 20 to 34 number, and I know this from the campaign, is highly suspect in terms of like folks are still registered here and count here, but they're not.
The census counts students at their college, not where they're living with their parents.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I called all these people. And I'm telling you, like the 20 to 30 anyway, most of them are only here like occasionally, yeah.
Well, and probably some have moved in, they graduated from college, they moved in with their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what we're noticing. And
I mean, you guys are parents in this age range. What do you think?
They're gone.
They're gone, but they're still like, you know, Church Street has a whole bunch of them.
Once they marry, they just go.
Well, I still have a son who lives with me.
In the basement? No?
No.
I'm kidding.
Well, kind of, I mean, it's a nice thing, but he's unemployed and he's looking for a job, and so he's hanging out with me. But, yeah, I think that, let's get to the chart, further talk about limited but increasing racial dispersity, because I think this was significant, that the number of residents who have, among the minority groups have doubled. You know, 113 to 226 were from 6.8% of the population to 12.4%. I think that's an interesting kind of
That's mostly,
finding.
how do they count Latino?
That's not Latino, that's, it's all, I have it in the plan, what the,
What slide are, what slide?
What slide are you on?
I'm on 5, the one that, oh, you were, I went back because we didn't finish the, and then,
It's forward.
Yeah, so we're
on major demographic trends. I just went through the third bullet. And also the fourth bullet, we're talking about a trend towards smaller households. 88% of households involve 3 or fewer members. Average household size decreased from 2.8 persons to 2.02 persons. So that's a significant kind of decline. Not surprising given the aging of the population, but still kind of extreme. It's kind of an out there statistic. And losing younger residents, gaining older ones, substantial increase in older residents with median age increasing from 40.8 to 60.1 years within that 2010 to 2021, within 10 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Also,
No, 10 years.
But just 20 years.
Yeah,
It's a huge change.
There's, we also may see a positive demographic, I mean, positive in the sense of diversity, a positive demographic impact with the acquisition of Fenn Farm by the Stockbridge Muncies. It's my understanding that they plan on having some folks reside there.
What's this acquisition, acquisition of what farm?
The north side of Monument Mountain is being purchased by the original Mohicans, the band that was the original Mohican band from the Stockbridge area. And that's 350 acres in Stockbridge, and it's my understanding that they're not only buying to conserve it, but also to have some folks create community here.
Are there any buildings on that land?
None that are inhabitable on this part. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's right up to them.
Are they subject to local zoning?
I have no idea. It's a conservation, the money's coming from the conservation groups from our century. There'll be guardrails from the state, but yeah.
Let me go down to the next slide.
Yeah.
With this slide though, you can see the aging of the population. I mean, all age groups except for that we're 20 to 34 group has declined, but the 65 plus went from 26% of all residents to 41% within between 2010 and 2021. And then the next slide just shows the enrollments at the Berkshire Hills Public Schools, going from 2010 to 2023. And Patrick provides information that those from Stockbridge And he was said, you said we're like 350
Oh,
part of
yes,
the, and now are 105,
It was
so.
108 this year. Last year was 114, but there were 13 in the senior class. So,
Only 14 in the senior class.
no, that was good. That was high.
Shouldn't this one be just us?
Yeah, we could,
I didn't have.
Peter can get all that.
Patty has raised her hand.
You can get it from Peter Dillon.
Oh,
Upstairs.
Patty?
Who's Peter Dillon?
He's the superintendent.
He's the superintendent.
Yeah, I can get his contact.
I just noticed, Patty, you have your hand up. Would you like to say something?
I just had a question, and I'm sorry I'm a little out of the loop on this process, but I was just curious because of the demographic information that's being presented based on Stockbridge. Some of these trends are actually reflective of national trends as well. And I was just curious if you also put that into context. For example, the smaller households and also the aging population.
We provided comparables of county and state, but not US.
And I'll also say, if you look at the housing needs assessment in some local towns like Lenox and even one out on the Cape, that you'd see some of these trends, but not to the extreme that you see here in Stockbridge.
That's
So,
absolutely right.
so the median age in Lenox, I don't remember exactly, but at the highest level, it hasn't increased anywhere near what we're seeing here.
And maybe the data's not available, Karen, but I think for just Stockbridge.
It is, we can get it.
You know what I'll do is I'll add another line.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll contact Peter Dillon and get the information.
I would
And
imagine
just
our,
add another line.
our graph line will probably look
It's gonna be.
no better than this.
Yes, be down here. I'm gonna have
We used to
to.
have 3 Little League teams, I'm told, so.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Indians, Braves, and
Okay.
Yankees.
Next.
All right, next is kind of looking at economic trends. And this is mostly from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey data, kind of 5-year estimates. So surprisingly low income for year-round residents with a median of $46,458. And that's down from about $50,100 in 2010. I mean, certainly the SHI units, skew some of this income information, and, a good many of the population earning less than $35,000 probably in the SHI.
Right.
But still, we're talking about, as the incomes go down, that increasingly limits what people can afford with respect to housing, and you're going to see widening affordability gaps and increasing cost burdens as people are spending way too much on their housing. And it's interesting, about the same level of households earn less than $25,000. That's 24% of all households, while 23% of all households earn more than $150,000. And you can kind of see this in the chart, which shows 2010 census and 2021 census, where you see increases in the households' lower incomes and declines in between, the eroding missing middle, and then increased major spike in those earning over $150,000. So widening income disparities basically in the community.
And the Beagle had the article on Saturday showing that in parts of Stockbridge and Lenox, as the category, it was over $27 an hour to be able to keep your rental costs within 30% based on rental housing prices. You had to earn what amounts to $54,000 a year to be able to afford an apartment, and that's not even home ownership.
A one bedroom.
No, that was a 2-bedroom. The 1-bedroom was around 21, I think.
You're right.
If you could send me that would be really helpful, because it's really hard nailing down rental costs.
Yeah, that's right on the front page of the Eagle.
It's Karen, I can give you this.
Oh, that's great. That's terrific. Thank you so much. Very timely. And also, disconcerting trend is the increase in poverty from 8.7% of all residents to 14.2% between those 2 decades. And just to give you a sense of the incomes for poverty, a household of three, about $23,000, household of one, about $13,600. So people with, crazy low incomes, so,
That's
yeah.
probably just social security,
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah, exactly.
not a
And then-
very generous social security.
That's right.
That's why we're here. I mean, let's face it, this is why we're here.
Yeah. That's very nice. And also speaking to income, increasing income disparities. The median income for renter households is $25,461, which is down from the 2010 median of $43,636. While the median income for homeowners was $73,800, up from $50,000 to $80,542 in 2010. And the average weekly wage, and this is from the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development in the state, for Stockbridge was $1,028, which translates into about $53,500 annually, assuming they're working full-time,
And that's
the whole
household,
year.
that's not,
That's that's for that one person. I mean, if another household member is working, two, then the income would go up. Nevertheless, that salary for people who actually have jobs in Stockbridge is higher than the median for Stockbridge residents. And
A lot of
See this
retired
very
people
often.
on low income.
yes. Some major housing growth and occupancy trends, kind of this next slide. So there was a net increase of 40 housing units between 2010 and 2021 to a total of 1,633 units. Seasonal units and second homes decreased from 761 units to 711 units, or from 47.6% to 43.4% of all units.
can say it again?
Yeah, that's not what this says. Yeah, second homes went up almost 50%.
This changed from the first draft.
Yeah, there was a boo-boo in the first draft, so this is
Oh,
a draft.
there.
This is a draft that
Oh, sorry.
was tweaked. Thanks, Jan. So I'll do it again. So seasonal units and second homes actually declined by 50 units.
Oh, really?
Yes.
These numbers, okay.
Housing growth included an increase of 32 net owner occupied units and 55 rentals.
What does that mean? Are you talking about short-term rentals, or there's no way we added
These are
55?
year-round units.
There's no way. Where?
There's probably some of the owner occupied units were converted to rentals.
I'm just telling you, none of us know where that would.
Well, this is, it is,
Yeah, no,
it is
okay.
the census data, and
Right.
one of the issues with census data for communities like Stockbridge, where there's a low population, the sample size is low, and so, the margin of error is higher. So, and even when there's not, in communities, you look at the census data and say, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's not that
The other thing I'll point
census
out
data
is,
is infallible.
the other thing I'll point out is that there's 695 total units. And on the prior slide, we said there were 866
Right.
full-time, and then this one we're saying we're down to 711. And that only adds up to 1,570 or whatever, 1,580. So
Well,
we're,
there's vacant units too. So
yeah.
these are seasonal, occasional. There is also vacant units that you have to
Okay,
take into
alright.
account. There was some increase in multifamily units, which is a kind of a good thing.
Once again,
Where?
I mean, I've been on board now, in my fourth year, we never
Well-
permitted a single one. I don't know where they're coming from.
Well,
There are all
there's a
sorts of
decrease in
permits, sorry.
two-family units by 57 units.
What?
Which is, it's based on that census data, there was a decline in two-family dwellings by 57 units. There was a small increase in 3 and 4 families and 5 to 9 units, and then there was a decrease in units of.
That's all extrapolated, then there are no 3 or 4 families in Stockbridge. Liz, do you know of any? 3 or 4 families?
No.
Yeah,
What
no. I mean,
about
that's just,
5
this will
to
be.
9?
5 to 9 increased by 68 units.
I mean, are you looking at condos? They're definitely condos.
No, sand condos, well, it depends. If they're townhouses, they're categorized under single-family attached units. If they're in, it depends on the number of units in the structure. So these are units per structure.
Okay, because there are a very few buildings that have more than 5 units in them. Very few.
Were they combined in the last 10 years though?
No.
Yeah, so they,
But keep in mind, this would include Pine Woods and.
but that wasn't, once again, it was apples to apples, 2010 to 2020.
Were they all there?
Yes.
Oh, we go.
Well, that's
But
interesting.
that would be some of the 5 to 9.
We might want to just
Yeah.
try to drill down on this.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, if their data was wrong because of the extrapolation, maybe we don't want to include it.
Yeah, people that hear this and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, why don't we just eliminate this one? I think it's still important to include in the needs assessment, but the state's gonna be looking to have some kind of that data. And also, low vacancy rates at 1.8% for home ownership and 3.1% for rentals. Anything below 5% represents very tight market conditions. So, and in talking to, realtors and looking for listings, I mean, it's just, the inventory is nothing, right? Yeah.
Nothing that's affordable, let's put it that way.
Well, it's hard to even see any listings that we get. So let's move on to housing costs. The median single-family house price was $575,000 in 2022 from banker and tradesman information. And that requires an income of about $148,000. And that's based on 80% financing, the 30% of income for housing costs. We plugged in a 6.5% interest rate, and plugged in the property taxes, et cetera, and came up with $148,000.
And
I just checked what?
Nope. Keep going.
I just checked banker and tradesman, and according to them, the median house price went down to $557,000, but that's based on only 10 sales, so it can be easily skewed.
So you need to go back farther.
I think the third point though is why things like that flex parcel zoning or ADUs
I
are so
know,
important.
I was gonna get to that.
Okay,
So, I mean, and just the median condo price was $545,000, and that acquired an income about the same amount of money as a single family. That's because the condo fees are included in underwriting criteria, and it kind of makes them more expensive. But, the median owner occupied 2-family dwelling requires a much lower income because of the rental income that accrues to the owner. That typically a lender will count about 75% of the rent as part of income. So you can get down to an income level of $62,000, and this is assuming a lowball rent of $1,500 and being able to add in to the underwriting of $1,125. So based on the proposed flex bylaw, you could get some reasonable rental and ownership units out of that. That's what I think some of these goals, the 40 units, you can get that bylaw passed, plus,
thank you.
just as 40 finance, benefits. I would see the 4 units being kind of realistic on those alone.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we build a 2-family home in this town anymore?
Well, last year, right now, with our zoning, we effectively incentivize large single-family homes because you need a special permit and extra acreage to build a 2-family. And so last year, at the beginning of 2022, I proposed that flex parcel zoning, which says, okay, if you give people like basically 5,000 square feet, let them chop it up between 2 or 3 units however they want. So it effectively incentivizes 2 or 3 smaller homes for the same by right zoning that we can now build one larger home. And that's exactly what this is saying. If we can get people two families, then instead of needing 150 grand a year in income, you can bring it down to 60,000, and that's,
What happened to that proposal?
well, the planning board is looking at it, hopefully again, Liz. It didn't go anywhere last year, but this is a new year.
Could you go just quickly how that would work, Patrick? Because if we have 2 and 4 acre zoning here.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say I have 2 acres and I want to build, the setbacks and everything allow me to build a 10,000 or a 4,000 foot house, right?
Add another floor, make it 5,
Okay.
everyone else is.
Right, but you're saying that instead of building a 5,000 square foot house, that same parcel could have.
The same amount of square footage
You got three.
could be applied into 2 or 3 homes.
Three
I grew up in a
1700s.
1,490 square foot home with a family of 5. All right, it's big enough. I'm just saying that you can live, smaller footprints are better for the environment.
Right.
They're-
No,
yeah,
I'm
all
with you,
that.
I wanna understand how someone understands how to do that. Because a 2 acre home allows you right now, a 2 acre parcel allows you one,
If you're an R2.
if you're in R2, I'm in R4. Okay, I'm just using R2 right now. But so I could build a 1,000 square foot house, a 2,000, a 3,000, 10,000.
No?
No?
Well, I'm just saying, my proposal was basically, I think it went to 4,800 total and up to 3 different homes. So basically, as long as you don't exceed what would be considered the typical large single family, you could basically split up the real estate, the square footage however you want.
Would it have to be a contiguous building, or could there be 3 different buildings?
That's, the specifics that I would leave up to others.
Yeah.
My goal was exactly what we're talking about here, which is to address affordability costs.
Well, wait a minute, so the frontage figures in if you only have, I've got a minimum of 120.
Well, it depends on whether you're in R2
Well, you couldn't increase the frontage, it would have to be basically the same rules apply to a lot as if it were a single family.
Right, but right now it's.
The zoning does not exist as a proposal.
Right.
But, and that's a state, to change our zoning, we have to go to.
No, we pass it with 2/3. And if it has an affordable component,
No, 50%, simple.
if it has an affordable component, it's 50%.
No, if it's housing production, it's 50%.
Oh.
Doesn't have to be affordable.
50% of what?
Town meeting.
Simple,
then there's
simple
not-
majority, not a super majority to get approval for zoning
Yeah.
related to housing
2018,
production.
yeah, to do it.
Even if it isn't affordable.
Even if it isn't affordable. The state's very interested in production.
Now, that's a huge thing, that ought to be on the police chart.
I usually, I think it's, might be in the draft.
Just percentage is easier than 6 and 7.
I'll add it. Certainly, we've got the strategies, it's a huge thing, on zoning
One thing
strategies,
is
but
not rejected.
I'll try to find an important
Just saying.
place.
We make a good case that.
That would help people understand what we're doing.
Yeah. Very good, okay, and then just moving on here, estimated low market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is put down as $1,500. That would require an income of about $68,000, much higher than the median renter household income of $25,461. And that's basically applying that 30% of income threshold, as well as they threw in $200 in monthly utility cost as an estimate. In regards to affordability gaps, we're looking at $427,000 for the median income earning household, based on the difference between the median priced home of $575,000 and what a median income earning household can afford, about $148,000. 30% of households had cost burdens as they were spending more than 30% of income on housing, including 12.5% with severe cost burdens because they were spending more than half their income on housing costs. Cost burden has increased to 46% and 23% respectively for households earning at or below 80% area median income. Yeah, so, gaps are getting wider and cost burdens are increasing.
Karen, I have a question. So in calculating this, let's say you have someone who has a house right now, resident, and they've owned this house for 25, 30 years. And so when you calculate this, is that assuming that they're paying a mortgage still? Because some of them may not be paying a mortgage anymore.
This is assuming that the house price is being financed
Right.
at 80% of area, 80% financing.
At current.
That's a good point.
It's not looking, we're not looking at existing homeowners. We're looking at existing homeowners though with cost burdens.
But the cost burden is defined assuming they're paying a mortgage.
No, cost burdens include people who, even those who don't have a mortgage have cost burdens. So we're counting people without without mortgages and with mortgages. In this kind of aggregate figure.
Right, but you're in calculating what the housing cost is, you're assuming they're paying a mortgage.
I'm assuming these are like for people not, the high affordability gaps are for people who are going to be looking to purchase. Or if you're looking to
Right.
subsidize a unit, you're talking about you're looking at the total cost of construction, the cost of housing versus what people can
I
afford.
understand.
Yeah.
Next slide is.
Next slide. This one shows the widening affordability gaps, tracking median household income and median single-family house price for 2000, 2010, and 2021. Now, the median house price in 2021 was $715,000 it's since gone down a bit.
Not much.
But you're still seeing that trajectory. And in the case of Stockbridge, usually they're like, most communities are having this affordability gap. But in Stockbridge is the incomes are going down too, which is disconcerting, obviously. And this slide, next slide, is just kind of a summary of this current housing dynamic, I call it, the housing kind of the scenario that's going on with the housing market. So these are just points. Stockbridge continues to attract second homeowners and retirees, driving up demand, slower housing production, continuing imbalance of housing supply and demand drives up prices exacerbated by COVID-19. It's simple economics 101. Rising housing prices lead to increasing affordability gaps and cost burdens, and not helped by low incomes, many folks. Decreasing incomes. Increasing value of land in tandem with restrictive zoning makes high-priced single-family home development the highest and best use. Greater diversity of the housing stock to address wide community needs is reliant on greater density and economies of scale. Subsidies are competitive and limited. I mentioned that Stockbridge's Justice 40 designation should help with this. Lower income residents, including many long or term residents, are struggling to remain in the community. We see that from the data. Let me just finish.
Yeah, sure.
Older residents on fixed incomes remain in their homes with little opportunity to downsize in the community. Starter housing is no longer being produced without subsidies, if at all. Yeah.
I have a question for Liz. Not to put you on the spot, and you may not know the answer off the top of your head. When we look at R1 versus R2 versus R4, are things like side setbacks, front setbacks, and frontage the same across all zones?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure,
Because the point I'm making is kind of one of the ways that you address the fifth point, increasing value of land in tandem with restrictive zoning, is you make sure that the zoning is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for example, when you've got 70% of the current houses are pre-existing non-conforming, that one might make the case that what is it that makes it non-conforming? It's not just the lot size. Sometimes a lot is big enough, but it could be a side setback, it could be a front setback, it could be frontage. Like the parcel that Randy looked at over the weekend, that it's got 30 acres but only 20 feet of frontage. Okay, that's got to be either a 40B or there's no way to get it done.
Right.
So I think that looking at the specifics of what makes 70% of the town non-conforming is a really important part of this analysis and what is reasonable, because nobody wants to blow up the character of the town, the beauty of the town. But what is a reasonable way to look at, as we look at, sort of downtown or, the half acre downtown area, the 1 acre and the 2 acre and the 4 acre? What is reasonable as we look at things like frontage requirements as they relate to 2 families or 3 families? And I know that some of these are the same no matter what size of the lot is. And I just think we should maybe put that on the table too.
Yeah. Look at dimensional.
Yeah, what are all the requirements?
I will be doing, the next section to be drafted is challenges to reducing affordable housing.
Mhm.
And you look at various challenges and you just come up with mitigating measures the town's willing to take to try to reduce them. Clearly zoning is one, and I'll do a real kind of analysis of zoning as it relates to, housing that'll be.
Are all those dimensions in the zoning bylaws, do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
That's why I haven't memorized.
Well, they can be confusing
I
and
just-
complicated.
I just figured just go as far as.
There you go. Anything else on this slide? Okay, so the next slide starts dealing with priority housing needs. And based on the information that we've gathered, the housing needs assessment tries to kind of distill the data into indicators of need and put them together to kind of give kind of a story about the extent of the need in the community. Clearly, we know that a lot of people are struggling to be here, and there is a need to kind of try to focus on some of the most financially vulnerable residents. So rental housing makes sense to do that because they can get at the lower than 60%, 50%, and 30% of AMI with the various state subsidies. Promote greater housing diversity as 76% of units are in single-family detached homes. Leverage local investments as almost all state and federal subsidies are directed to rentals. So if you're going to build at some scale, if you're going to get subsidies to leverage your money, rentals is the way to go. That's just the reality of it. Provide opportunities for mixed income housing, including financing for lower income tiers. Provide support for greater numbers of residents over time as rentals turn over more frequently. Enhance the ability to qualify households for assistance given state asset limit requirements. And all units in a 40B rental project qualify for inclusion in the SHI and the issue maintaining cushion over that 10% affordable level. And there's potential future rental development opportunity, potentially from the flex bylaw, but also from some of the housing authority property that could potentially be developed for rentals and well beyond that, 4 units per year. And then the next slide basically looks at rental housing being the top priority based on the following indicators of need. Almost half of renters have incomes of less than $25,000. I mean, certainly 113 SHI units are probably within at least $35,000 income range. The median income earning renter, $25,461, could afford a rent of not much more than $500, assuming they're paying no more than 30% of income on housing, including some utility costs, and I'll be interested in looking at that article and adding that in. Lack of listings, high rents and upfront cash requirements, often first month's rent, second month's rent, security deposit, in addition to moving expenses. Low vacancy rate of 3.1%, long waits for SHI units. 48% of renter households had cost burdens, 19% with severe cost burdens. A particular concern of the renter households with incomes at or below 50% AMI, 66% with cost burdens, including 55 or 31% with severe cost burdens.
Right, but I guess my question is, and I think that your experience is especially relevant on this, Karen, in that, you've worked on so many, I see the Cape is kind of 20 years ahead of the Berkshires on some of the things that are happening. In fact, Michaela has some stories about Nantucket 20 years ago that I think feel a lot like Stockbridge today. in a market where I got a broker knocking on my door, true story, saying, I can get you 13,000 a month for June, July, and August.
Yeah.
Can we rely on the homeowners' incentives to create housing that would meet the need of a renter in the long term are so displaced from what even just renting for 3 or 4 months of the summer can provide? How, when you start talking about the kind of,
It's probably not a good strategy to rely on homeowners to create rental units that are going to be affordable. Not a good strategy.
right,
Unless it's somehow part of the deal, like with the flex bylaw,
Right.
you really try to, you add some subsidies so that you are basically incentivizing, affordable rentals.
the idea of the flex bylaw is not to avoid the kind of high cash rentals, because that helps affordability for homeownership.
That's right.
The problem I have is as you start to look at,
Let me mention though, there is a niche, ADUs are not the silver bullet, but for some owners, ADUs make a lot of sense because they can provide a rental income. So if you're a severely cost burdened older person, you're living in a big house, and maybe you have like a son who's handy, creating an accessory apartment is a huge thing for aging in place. Similar if you are, an adult and you've got a kid, you want to have your own pair, or if you have a disabled person. There's reasons for creating an accessory dwelling unit, and that can help for some folks. And there's some incentives built in for owners to do that. So it's still something that we should be considering. But other than that, no, I think if you're going to be developing rental, you've got to be talking about the development of SHA property or other properties, or creating inclusionary zoning that really has teeth in it. So anything that's built includes affordable housing.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you could envision a project that might have some affordable housing, but also have rental apartments, let's say, for people who might be homeowners right now in a big house, and they might prefer to move into this facility. But
Yeah,
because of the asset issue you mentioned.
Well, they probably won't qualify for the affordable unit.
Yes.
But they might qualify, if you can build in other income tiers, or they might qualify for the market units, because, so there are examples of projects that include multiple income tiers for home ownership.
And do they,
For rental too.
in those multiple projects, do they combine some that would be rentals, including affordable housing rentals, and some that might be condo units that could be purchased that are not affordable?
Typically, they don't. However, if land is at a premium, I was doing some consulting for a project down on Martha's Vineyard, and they have beautiful town property. And talk about the need being dire there, incredible. And we were actually talking about 2 different phases and groupings of home ownership and rental, because it was such an important opportunity. Because it was town-owned, so you didn't have to acquire the land, et cetera. So, I think that you certainly can do that, but most projects do they're financed differently and whatever, but something we can ponder. We just finished calculations of unmet housing needs for renters based on cost burdens show a shortage of 138 units for low and moderate income households, those are households that are below 80% of area median. I gotta say, based on cost burden, there's not a lot of need above 80% of area median income for actually renters, but also homeowners. That the crush is happening to people earning at as low as 80%.
Karen, when you talk about 80%, are you talking about two earners, 3 earners?
It's adjusted by household size. So,
Right, I know it's.
and it's for the whole area of Pittsfield, area. So it's the same income limits in Pittsfield as you have here.
Right, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that when you calculated the shortage, you said there's not much of a need above if you earn more than 80%.
That's right.
But are you saying if a single person owns above 80% or two people?
All types of households.
All
It's
types of households.
Yeah, we actually split it up. If you look in the plan, it's split up by type of house. It's split by tenure, by income range, and by types of households. You'll see those who are 62 and older, small families, large families. There are hardly any large families in Stockbridge. And what are called non-family, non-elderly households, which are basically single individuals who are under 62. And the burdens are all provided for all of that in there. And this 138
that you came up.
that comes with all renter households earning at or below 80% of area median income.
So we need to figure out how to build 138.
Well, it's the cost burden data, will change over time. At this point, based on the data, the latest report available, the latest data available, that's what it is currently. So if you're talking about 170 units over time, it's not unrealistic that a good part of those are going to be, should be renters based on these indicators of need and considerations.
And over time, the way the graph looks,
It's going to get
rich people are going up and poor people are declining, so that the need for more housing will diminish.
Exactly.
Of 138.
Well, some of the demand might go away, but I don't know. A place like this is so beautiful, it's going to continue to attract it's not likely to lose its appeal.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'm just
I
saying.
mean, some of the people who are really low income earners will die off and they'll be replaced by, people who can afford to live here.
Kids will sell the house and somebody from New York will buy it.
But if you want greater social and economic diversity in the workforce and people, I mean, you gotta try to kind of encourage a mix.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's hard to fight the tape.
We just go to the next one really quickly. So we're almost done, guys. Hang in there. So we still identify that part of this town's housing agenda should be the inclusion of homeownership, particularly first-time homeownership, starter housing, and some opportunities for
It's
downsizing.
discouraging that all those subsidies seem to be rentals, and it takes away the idea of helping to build some equity in people's lives.
There's some subsidies, there's all the Habitat for Humanity housing is a home ownership,
It's sweat equity
yeah, but.
and mortgages but how many houses do they build? One here.
No, they're 30 or 40 in Great Barrington right now.
There's a big project going
Big
on.
project.
That's really unusual for
I know, I'm just saying.
It's really unusual.
I mean, it
Well,
hasn't
that's
happened
great.
yet, but.
Well, that's great.
It's
And you've got
unclear.
other CDCs and entities. You've got good potential partners to
Right.
work with.
And when we don't have 100 kids in town, 5 or 6 houses, Habitat houses over 5 or 10 years, the average of 2 kids a household, you could basically move the needle 12-15% just by basically building a handful of houses.
But you want to attract more of those younger houses.
I know we do, but I'm just saying, there's even small increments, when the bar is so low, I mean,
You're right, that's right. Offer potential units for those with incomes in the 80 to 100% AMA range who are still eligible CPA assistance but priced out of the housing market. It's a consideration. Offer affordable housing alternatives to empty nesters who want to downsize. Home modifications and handicap access are important to this population. Lend greater stability to neighborhoods as owners are perceived as being more rooted with less turnover. Enable children who are raised in the community return and raise their own families locally. Provide a preferred housing option for municipal employees and other local workers. Offer some limited buildup of equity. None of the current SHI units involve home ownership. But once again, development must rely on internal subsidies and CPA to fill high affordability gaps. Also, I'm gonna add rental income can really help subsidize a number as well. But it's harder to do homeownership at any scale.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of what the financing is available.
Well, let's do the two-family thing. That was your.
The two-family thing, I am one of those people who say, change zoning, allow two-family across all residential districts, by right, and,
Yeah, me too.
yeah. Priority housing needs just, also, special recognition to the fact that there are population in, Stockbridge has a high level of those who claim a disability at 20.8% of the population compared to 15% for the county and 11.7% for the state.
What do you think that's all about, Carrie? Do we have a
Well,
lot of
clearly it's an aging
Alzheimer's here?
population.
A lot of those handicap parking stickers.
Yeah.
But this is really, most of our Justice 40 designations relate to age and income. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to be looking for community development block grants so that we can do things like the handicap ramps and, the home improvements, like low-income home ownership. There's a lot of that in our senior community. And
Housing rehab.
yeah, and basically helping people rehab their houses if they are
That's
income
right.
qualified
That's
is
right.
something we should be all in on.
Yeah, we're gonna be, when we get to the strategies, I think that will be
Yeah.
an important. Growing senior population, barriers to aging in place, we're talking about isolation and transportation limitations, home maintenance, challenges, in the context of increasing housing costs. No assisted living options in Stockbridge. SHI includes 22 units in a group facility, but that's way insufficient to meet the need. Very limited housing options are available for disabled young adults who grew up in Stockbridge or are aging out of foster care is another. It's certainly less of an issue for younger and older population, but still a consideration. And also need resources for improving housing conditions for qualifying households. 80% of the housing stock was built before 1980, 45% before World War II. The good news, the housing stock is beautiful. The bad news is it's older. A lot of houses really have deferred maintenance needs. Concerns about lead-based paint, which is hazardous to young children. Septic problems, health and safety improvements for an aging population. This issue was mentioned as a major concern of seniors in the recent Resilient Housing Initiative survey.
Right.
And some SHI units require significant improvements. Also, housing preservation issues. And the next step is just a draft. We're assuming that this is going to be shown at the community housing workshop. So for them, the next step would be to draft the next sections of the housing HPP. You know what I need to do here, Jan, is add the survey.
And that was really an outstanding presentation. Thank you.
Oh,
A lot of really great
thank
ideas.
you, thank you. Well, I've listened to some of you too, so that's been all very helpful, huh?
It's
Um,
a daunting picture though.
It is, isn't it? It is.
No?
That would be great if a lot of people could attend, or if there could be some kind of cable access there, so that people can kind of hear, what's going on. At some point, maybe, we need to talk about the agenda and breakout groups. I included this last slide because when we're doing the workshop, this is a way of kind of saying to the participants, these are kind of the questions that we're going to be asking in the breakout groups, being, what does affordable housing mean to you is just kind of an icebreaker, where in small groups, people go around and introduce themselves and just say briefly.
What's the ideal size of a breakout group?
Well, I'd say 5 to 7 people is kind of an ideal size. If it gets much more, it takes more time. If it's less, you don't get as much of the kind of
So
melding.
the layout of the room or whatever has to be appropriate for that.
Right, if you have to add chairs,
Bring your own chair kind of
fine, but yeah.
They have chairs.
Bring your own chair.
Well, move your own chair.
Oh, move your own chair.
There would probably be round tables.
Yeah, that would be great to have a
That's what
round
we've done
chair.
before. I think it was about 8
All right.
10 people at
All
each
right.
table.
So the room is set up that way to begin with, it's already in a
Oh,
great
God,
picture.
yeah, otherwise it'd just be a mess.
That's what I was picturing.
Yeah, and the other thing is, the instructions suggest that every breakout group have a facilitator. And the role of facilitator, not to teach people, but to kind of keep things moving. So there's a time frame that keeps the conversation going, making sure that everybody in turn in the breakout group gets a chance to be heard. And there'll also be a recorder who's taking notes, hopefully like a flip chart or something, right, you know, for each group that records the comments. And when we get through the final kind of discussion questions that kind of relate to specific actions that people think should be priorities in the community. And each group, a quarter in each group typically presents the top 6 priority actions. And then everybody gets sticky dots and they get to vote on any of the percentage actions. They can put all 5 on one that they really love, or they can spread it out however they want. And you know, usually give an opposition one dot for things that they really don't, they're really in opposition of. And you know, the whole voting thing is, I think people really enjoy it. And then I'll take all the sheets back with me and then I'll do a summary of the results that we can attach to the housing plan.
Randy, are these drafts on the website, the presentation and the
There's nothing on the
Housing production
website,
plan?
they are not on there yet.
I think we should get them up there, so if people can watch the meeting, they can reference the first draft.
Yeah, I'm gonna be tweaking the housing needs, the draft housing needs assessment based on a couple of things. And I'll tweak this based on our discussion today, and then they should be ready to post.
All right, it's just, you know, people, these will be available on Zoom in
That'd be great.
36 hours. And I would like people to be able to access the materials, even if we update them after you change them. I don't know how fast you can update them, but, you
I'll
know.
do it in the next couple of days.
Okay, so let's have a goal
By the
of
end
this
of the
Monday, Tuesday. By Friday, let's get everything
Yeah, by
posted.
the end of the week, because
And everything is the presentation,
We don't have to approve those?
or the presentation, Patrick, or are you saying both the presentation
And the draft.
and the first version?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Let people
it'd
read it.
be great, particularly when we talk about having them do a survey, the more they know,
That's
the
right.
better the survey results.
Yeah,
Okay.
Patrick, maybe email this back, we have a new website. Our group had not been given any section of it.
if you can't post it yourself, then just have Michael and Teresa post it, either way.
Well, no, that's a bigger question, the way they have it organized, they have, you know, like the big group, like conservation and it's like when they have their own section of the website. We're kind of an orphan child.
Well, then we can request an upgrade. Let's call Michael tomorrow.
Well, we have our minute, we'd have a section where we can hit, and there's
only-
our agendas and our minutes, so I could.
But it'd be nice to be able to add
I'm
these
thinking,
documents,
yeah.
The select board is only 3 people and this is 7, so we should have 2 times the space.
Great Barrington has,
Their own
they have their own
website.
website, so they can add articles, information, what they're doing.
Yeah,
You know, it's a whole
Yeah.
level beyond agendas and, you know.
Yeah.
Right,
most communities do that.
And you, if you get that, you get a login so that you should be able to update yourself.
with Great Bear.
right, it's a deal.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
But that's very separate from the town, they have, it's their own town.
I mean,
All right, that would
we
be
could set
a
up a
wonderful
website.
goal for us to.
Can you do that?
GoDaddy, well, I've done it.
I can't.
I've made a couple. On GoDaddy, you can make them. You can make them.
All right, thanks guys for your patience in getting through all of that.
Thank you.
And I'll be turning this around, I'll get back to you right away about the 26th, thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we close this meeting.
Second, would you like to adjourn?
Yes, I would.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye. Michaela?
And Karen, you would like this?
Oh, yes, perfect, thank you very much.
So we're at the good time. I won't cover it.
Thank you all.
Nice to meet you all.
Extended?
Thank you.